We are back. Welcome, everyone, to the Big Lee's World podcast. It is I, your host, Big Lee, coming to you once again from the mobile studio here in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Thanks to everyone that's been listening to the past couple episodes. I really appreciate the love and support on those. The last episode, I talked about the adventures of IWA Deep South, and they did confirm since that episode has dropped that they will be back in McKenzie, Tennessee on October the 14th, 2024. So that should be another interesting road trip endeavor. And speaking of McKenzie, Tennessee, that is kind of what I want to talk about in this episode is the summer travels to West Tennessee for some wrestling I went to over the summer. I'm going to talk about a couple of different promotions I went to there. I'm trying to think if I remember right. I do believe it was three different promotions, three different types of wrestling, and, you know, three different experiences. I went and seen our good friends down in Premier Pro Wrestling in Dyer, Tennessee over the summer. I went to a promotion that's been around for a while that I had never been to before, and that was called Swag Wrestling. And then I will talk about the adventures or the endeavor that was Memphis Championship Wrestling or Memphis Wrestling, something like that, whichever one it's called. I'm not really too 100% sure at this point in time. But anyways, we'll just start out the beginning here. Our good friends Brian and Stephanie, they have a company over in West Tennessee called Premier Pro Wrestling. They definitely try to book the top tier talent in the area. They run, when we were recording this, or when we went, I should also say, they were running out of the fire station in Dyer, Tennessee. So the first thing that I learned about this endeavor was there's a difference between Dyer, Tennessee, and what I normally known as Dyersburg, Tennessee. So that was a little bit of a trip. For those that don't know, Dyer's on the other side of New Bern, which is on the other side of Dyersburg. And they run out of the fire station there. It looks like I think they have some kind of agreement with them to where, they can run the show at the fire station, and fire station sells food and stuff like that and helps raise money for the fire station. And overall, it's a pretty neat setup. It's kind of open area there when they raise the fire doors up and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool if you like that summertime vibe. It's definitely there for it. Personally, for me, it was a little hot, but anybody that knows if it's like above 50 degrees, I don't like to be outside in the heat. But they had a good show. They did a show. It was them versus New South Wrestling, which is a company I believe in Alabama, and they did kind of the best of the best of their talent versus their talent. And overall, it was a pretty solid show. I got to stay for most of it. I did had to get back and do some family stuff, and the fact the show's on a Friday and I'm old, and Friday nights I need my naps after work. So driving to a show after work was a bit of a haul, but hey, we made it work. So if you are in the West Tennessee area and you're wanting to see some of the top wrestling talent there, definitely make sure to check out our good friends over at Premier Pro Wrestling. You can just hit them up on Facebook, and they'll have their shows posted there that they do. So from there, back we ended up. I don't think made a trip down to West Tennessee again until July, I do believe it was, and went to the legendary, the infamous Swag Pro Wrestling. And for those that don't know, I don't either. Don't know why it's called swag. So before y'all comment and ask, or y'all see me and ask, no, I have no idea why it's called swag wrestling. That's not like a rib or a shoot or anything like that. I just really don't know. So if you go to one of their shows, you can maybe ask Crusher or them if they know what it stands for. But nonetheless, we went down to Swag Pro Wrestling. It's in Huntington. I think it's called Huntington, Tennessee, which is close to McKenzie. And they run at the fairgrounds out there. The reason we went is they did bring in our good friend Madman Pondo and Japanese deathmatch wrestling legend from MLW and FMW and CZW, Shadow WX. which is still wild to me that not only did we get to see Shadow WX and meet Shadow WX, that he came of all places to West Tennessee. So, yeah, all for the low price of $8 a ticket to see them wrestle the Inhumane Society. Our good friend Crusher Koloff and his tag team partner Brimstone. They wrestled and had about 7 or 8 matches, I think, on that card that night. It was definitely a little bit different than what we're normally used to there. You know, they had a pretty good draw that night. I think they probably had around maybe 75, 80 people. So for a West Tennessee show, there's so many shows. That's a pretty decent draw here, or draw there, I should say. We're in Missouri, not Tennessee right now. I do think that the crowd did not fully appreciate Shadow WX and his legacy to the business. It was quite crazy to see that when Shadow WX came out to the merch stand at intermission, nobody really went up to him. I talked to some of the locals there who were quite upset with the fact that he was charging $30 for a t-shirt, and in order to get an autograph or a picture with him, you either had to pay $20 for the photo or autograph or $30 for the t-shirt and the photo op, which to me seemed like a great deal for a Japanese deathmatch legend. However, the local folks of Huntington, Tennessee, did not agree with my logic and were not quite happy. They pretty well did not want to open their pocketbooks for anything, it seemed like, and especially not for that price, which I don't know if they're just not overly familiar with deathmatch wrestling and the history of it, or they're just really cheap. I think at that point it's 50-50. But nonetheless, they had their local guys there. The local crowd seemed to be really into it. Not really necessarily my cup of tea in a lot of the local matches, but I don't follow their storylines, and they, like I said, the people that do, they were really into it. Side note on the TikTok, I created a video I took of what was his name, Little Hollywood versus Jennifer Justice. And for those that don't know, Little Hollywood is a little person and had a hardcore match with this lady named Jennifer Justice, and put a video up of Little Hollywood hitting Jennifer Justice with, I believe it was either a stop sign or a cookie sheet or pizza pan, and posted it to one of those I Hate Everyone songs. And it got some pretty good views, and it was pretty funny that the artist of the song actually saw it, commented, and said, "Hey, this is probably the best use of my song that's been on one of these TikTok videos." So I thought that was pretty cool. So if you want to see that, you can always hit up at Big Lee's World on the social media, on the TikTok, and check that video out. Anyways, like I said, they had quite a few matches that night, and then it finally came time to the main event. Madman Pondo, Shadow WX against the Inhumane Society. And to be 110% honest with you, that crowd could not have cared less. And that hurt my soul because that. So just to see Shadow WX and Pondo team together in West Tennessee is one thing. And I thought that, they would be really into it because they work some local guys, um, Crusher and Brimstone. They're from that area, and they're legends around there. So I thought the least the crowd would be excited to see their local heroes get to wrestle some deathmatch legends. But yeah, they were not feeling it at all, which is sad. But hey, if you want to check out that video, you can also check it out on the socials at Big Lee's World. I believe the video is on YouTube as well. I know it's on the Facebook page, so make sure you check that out. I thought it was a great match. Definitely better than what I expected, and the whole fire spot with Shadow WX, made it worth it, and it's definitely worth checking out. And I got to talk to Shadow. Well, I was gonna say I tried to talk to Shadow WX, but that language barrier was a little rough, so it wasn't a deep conversation. But I did get to talk to Brimstone, Madman Pondo, and Crusher Koloff after the match. So overall, it was a good time, and definitely a little bit different than what I'm used to. But hey, It's 2023. Tomorrow's not promised to anyone. So I recommend, if you get a chance, to go check out anything that you're not used to, if you want a different experience, and give something a try. You may like it, you may not. But hey, you've got that experience under your belt. And, a good Saturday road trip to West Tennessee, even if you don't enjoy the product, the stories itself you can tell from it is well worth it. Because the other story from that show is they were the only show I've been to, I think, that the concession stand so generic sodas. And I'm a big Dr. Pepper fanatic. For those that don't know, I love Dr. Pepper. There's not a soda better, and I'll take that to my grave to defend Dr. Pepper. And they had Dr. Thunder, and yeah, Dr. Thunder nowhere near as good as the iconic Dr. Pepper. So that would probably be one of my biggest critiques to Swag, besides, getting that ring fixed up and stuff like that, is quit carrying generic sodas and actually carry name brand sodas. And if I'm going to pay a whole one George Washington $1 for a can of soda, please let it be the name brand soda. So, but anyways, like I said, you can check out Swag Wrestling. They're on Facebook. They post their shows. I think they run either monthly or semi-monthly. So check them out if you want to see something a little bit different than what you're used to, and a little bit edgier, a little bit more on the hardcore West Tennessee side. Make sure to check them out. You'll have fun. If you don't enjoy the product, you'll at least have fun on the road trip, and you'll have fun people watching. So, anyways, with that being said, the last West Tennessee summer wrestling company I went to is very interesting, to say the least, because honestly, I never thought I'd see myself going there. And that is Memphis Wrestling, or Memphis Championship Wrestling. Is it Memphis? I think it's just Memphis Wrestling is what they go by now. I think that's what it is. Well, anyways, it's the big time Memphis Wrestling, ran by Dustin Starr, and they I guess they're part of some championship. Oh, I think that's what it is. Championship Wrestling from Memphis, maybe is what it's called, because they're part of the whole Championship Wrestling from Hollywood family. Anyways, they they're the popular wrestling in Memphis, to say the least. And we went down there because they booked AEW superstar Lance Archer, which, for those that knows, I'm a big Lance Archer fan from when he was Lance Hoyt in TNA, and seeing all the stuff that he does in New Japan and seeing what he does in AEW. Thought it was pretty cool that he was coming to Memphis, and it would give you the opportunity to meet him and to get my Lance Archer figure signed. So that was I was looking forward to that. But anyone that knows me knows I've been kind of critical of Memphis Wrestling, just because it honestly, it's not for me. That's kind of a spoiler to the story. But that Memphis style wrestling, like, I loved, like, the older Memphis wrestling, when they would have the bloody brawls and the Tupelo concession stands and the violent hardcore and the barbed wire and stuff like that. Like, that's what I could get behind. But it is very character heavy, and those characters are sometimes, I hate to say corny, because that's, offensive to the character that they use. However, at that same time, it's kind of like, well, I don't know. Like, I like my professional wrestling a little bit more realistic base, as far as the characters. Like, under the favorite Undertaker was Motorcycle Undertaker, because it definitely, quote unquote, was more realistic than zombie guy that rises from the casket every couple of years, and he can shoot lightning out of ring posts and all that stuff. But nonetheless, I was like, well, I guess never say never, and I'm gonna go down to Memphis Wrestling. So I go down there, and honestly, it's kind of in an odd part of the neighborhood. Never been to. You literally get there, and you make a right hand turn. There's a Burger King that had hardly nobody there, And on the left hand side, there looked like some office buildings. And apparently, the office building is where the wrestling was. And I get out there, and there are people tailgating, barbecuing. And my first experience, I tried to buy barbecue from the tailgaters because I just drove in and I was starving. And they would not sell me any barbecue, which I thought was really weird. They're like, yeah, it's just for our tailgate. I'm like, all right, dude, I'll give you like $5 for a burger. And they're like, yeah, no, we're just tailgating. So I was like, okay. So I ended up going to that deserted looking Burger King, which apparently is a pretty dangerous Burger King because folklore goes that it gets robbed like almost every other week. So yeah, but hey, I at least finally got some food. So nonetheless, we eat and go back to the parking lot and stand out there with the locals who apparently know each other so much that as soon as I got out of the car again, they're like, "Hey, we know you're new here." I'm like, did the Missouri license plates give it away, or the fact that I asked you to sell barbecue to me and you wouldn't do it? So they go through and they start asking 100,000 questions about what I think of this character and that character, and basically just kind of trying to kayfabe them to not be like, I don't know who these people are that y'all are talking about, but I'm really just here for Lance Archer. Nonetheless, doors finally open. We go in. They had their big names for that show was Lance Archer and the Atrocity Cruel from ICW No Holds Barred. And since they were fighting each other, they did the split meet and greet where you met Cruel at the beginning of the show, and then after the show, you met Lance Archer, which kind of frustrated me because, to be 100% honest with you, I had planned to just meet Lance Archer and leave. But he ended up having to stay for the show because Lance Archer's meet and greet got moved to the end of the show for quote unquote kayfabe because, they can't, they're about to have this big old fight and they can't be in the room together. Okay, cool, whatever. Anyways, so we go and we do the meet and greet, and it's interesting because they have a little casket set up beside Cruel. And when I say it's a little casket, like, I mean, this thing's probably about like 5 foot, if that. And I thought it was just kind of weird. I thought maybe they just had the prop sitting there because it was left from something else, or they were trying to unpack to get Halloween decorations ready for a future show. So I don't think too much about it. I do the little meet and greet with Cruel, get the picture with him and his significant other, Brooklyn Creed, which I got to see her wrestle for the first time. I mean, she's very attractive and she did great working. So I hope to see more of her in the future. But nonetheless, we go in, start meeting and greeting with the locals and finding our seat and packing us there in the front row. And apparently, they take like, so for those that don't know, Memphis Wrestling tapes like 3 or 4 shows at a time. So what they'll do is, and they're short shows. So like the show, I think itself is like an hour, including commercials. So each set's like maybe 35, 45 minutes, and there's a couple-minute break, and then they start the next taping. So we ended up actually getting to see Lance Archer take on our good friends Main Event, Bradley and Idol Bane. I'm not sure what Idol Bane goes by in Memphis Wrestling, but it was interesting to see. And I'm glad that they kind of got the rub from Lance Archer for that. So, good for them. And like I said, the whole show itself is very character based, and I don't want to harper too much on that because it it led from a person like me who's not very character driven. Like, I'm there for violence. I don't care like what cartoonish story that you have to tell. I just want to see violence. As far as I'm concerned, violence for the sake of violence. And for those of you that listen to the IWA Deep South episode, that's a shoot, or as the words from the video, shoot style, baby, shoot style, baby. Nonetheless, anyways, like these characters, they go back and forth, and they have all different kinds. And the local fans that are really character based, or like love the characters, like they'll get into it. Literally, the guy that sat beside me when one of the heel managers interfered in the match and caused it the good guy to win, I'm like, he started tearing up. Like, this dude cried like 2 or 3 times. when the good guys got cheated. And to me, I'm just like, dude, really? Like, it's not that serious. Nonetheless, they take it very serious. And on a side note with it, and I think that's where, you know, uh, where it kind of difference. I did not grow up a WWF kid. Like, I seen some of the WWF videos and stuff like it. We didn't get WWF distributed when I was growing up. We kind of got it for a little bit in 96, 97 when they ran it on WGN. But, I grew up on WCW. Memphis Wrestling cut off about 20 miles before it got to my hometown. So the only time we would see it is whenever, Memphis Wrestling would come to like Kennett or Crothersville. We could go to the local show. They would do like little spot shows there we could go to. But otherwise, as far as like following the product itself, I wasn't able to do that. So I grew up a WCW guy. And if you know what you know about WCW is in the late 90s or early 90s, I should say, they had some characters, but their big deal was like more on the fighting, the violence versus the full fledged characters. Like, I mean, they had Sting and eventually they had Hogan, but like, they had Ric Flair, they had the Four Horsemen, they had Sid Vicious, they had Stan Hansen, they had Lex Luger when he was, more about the fighting, the violence, not necessarily about the Lex Express and all of that. So, and I mean, like I said, they did have some characters. Like I said, they had Sting. Vader was its own monster character. Cactus Jack was there, but you wasn't necessarily focused on the good guy versus bad guy part. You were focused on who could do the most violence or who had the better actual wrestling match. So that's what I grew up on, and that's what I got hooked on. And of course, I went to, got into ECW before I got into WWF. And by the time I got really into WWF, it was the Attitude Era to where it was less cartoonish characters and more quote unquote realistic characters. So, like I said, that, I didn't grow up in the whole full character base of the Memphis and all that stuff, that Memphis style. So, it's not for me. But, they had fun. They enjoyed it. It was, good for them. Do no harm. Like, if they enjoy it, that's fine. Like, I know what I'm getting into. And, I knew my main goal there was not necessarily for the show itself, but, like I said, to meet Lance. So, nonetheless, they had fun. Well, I hope the guy had fun. I mean, I don't know about the whole crying part. Like, I don't know how much fun it is, but I definitely, if I got that worked up about it, I probably wouldn't pay for a ticket to go to a show to cry on TV. But hey, that's neither here nor there. So, like I said, we got to see some old friends too. We got to see the LA Hustlers, who kind of big timed us and didn't want to speak to me while they were there. But that's fine. Got to see our old friend Austin and Nikki Lane. They were nice enough to take time. And of course, got to see the Good Brothers, main event Bradley, and Idle Bane, or like I said earlier, I don't remember what they call him in Memphis. And so I got to talk to Austin and them. Got to talk to our friend K Toomer, up and coming guy out of Little Rock. He works a lot for Memphis Wrestling. So, definitely make sure you check him out as well if you're not familiar with his work. But finally, after all these matches and all these shows, we finally get to the main event, which is going to be our boy, the Murder Hawk, Lance Archer, versus the Atrocity Crew. And I found out right before then that the reason that the casket was up front is because it's going to be a casket match. Which is like, okay. I had questions because I could see how small the casket was. So I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work because if you don't know about Cruel or Lance Archer, they both check in around 7 foot, and that casket was like 5 foot. And I know I'm not the smartest in the world, but I don't think you're going to put a 7 foot inside of a 5 foot box. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to work out in your favor. So I was really intrigued to see what they're going to pull off here with this. So they go to the match, they do their spots and everything, and it finally gets to the finish of the match. And of course, the match ends with getting thrown not in the casket, but on top of the casket lid, and then going for the pinfall. and that ended the tapings of the Memphis Wrestling. So after that, we ended up jumping in line to meet Lance Archer, get our figure signed, talk to him for a bit. It was pretty cool, get our picture with him. So overall, got to see our good friend Kathy. There's different videos, clips, and photos from that event over on the socials. Like I said, this happened over the summer, and we're trying to get caught up here on some of these summertime adventure stories here on the Big Lee's World podcast. So, you could definitely check out some of these summertime event, videos and photos over at Big Lee's World on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also, right before we left, we did end up getting to talk to our good friend Kay Toomer again and kind of talk life and talk about what he has coming up. So that was pretty fun. And we ended up leaving Memphis and going home. So, like I said, the Memphis wrestling to me, like, was something I never thought I would actually do because I just didn't really have it in me. And I could see how, like, if that was your thing, I could see how they get their draw. I can see how the people there, like that are there for the show, are really into it, stuff like that. My biggest critiques for it is, I don't know, like fix the air conditioning in the front half of the building because that you're selling your meet and greets and everybody's hot and sweaty by the time they're taking the photos and then they go inside the air conditioned part. Probably want to fix that. That's just a bad customer experience, I feel like. And then the whole, good. If the building's big enough, you don't have to have the good. Put your two names together. If you want to really keep a kayfabe and spread them out, you could do that. I don't like the fact of being like, hey, you can't meet this person till then. And speaking of which, that goes to the last part of the experience there. I bought the VIP portion because that's what it was said online to meet Lance. And I guess that's where I don't understand like the VIP part because we didn't get to cut line in front of anybody to meet him. It wasn't a private meet and greet. Also, you still had to pay on top of the VIP to meet Lance Archer and get an autograph and a photo, even though you had the VIP and it said online the VIP included, the meet and greet with Lance Archer. So I don't really understand the point of the VIP. So that would probably be the thing I'd be advised for if you're not wanting front row. Then if you're just doing it to meet the person that they're bringing in, then I would probably suggest steering away from the VIP and just getting your general admission since you're going to have to still pay to meet the wrestler that you want to meet anyways, and it's not included with the VIP even though it says it's included with the VIP. So that's the good old Memphis wrestling. Like I say, if you're very character based and you want to get pulled into that, you're not necessarily about like the ultra violence and you're more character based and want to get involved in it and the overall story, check out Memphis Wrestling. You'll probably want to Google like either Memphis Wrestling or Championship Wrestling. I'm sure when I drop this episode, I'll have them tagged in the post itself, so you could check that out as well. And with that being said, that was kind of our West Tennessee wrestling adventures. We took that summer, started the summer in at Premier Pro, went through the swag wrestling, made it to Memphis wrestling, and then oddly enough, ended I guess it's technically fall with the last episode, but the fall October with IWA Deep South Carnage Cup 13. And like I said, they've already announced Carnage Cup 14 will be October 14th at back in McKenzie, Tennessee. So I'll go ahead and tell y'all, as long as it doesn't interfere with ICW Chicago dates, I have to look at the calendar and see when exactly that is. I know they've already announced their October dates. So as long as it doesn't interfere with the ICW dates, then I definitely plan to be back in good old McKenzie, Tennessee. Probably will take the old work truck instead of the car, so it'll be a little easier to maneuver around those dirt roads. So, anyways, I appreciate y'all taking time to listen to these episodes. It does feel good to be back recording these podcasts and kind of getting life back on track and talking about some of these summer adventures. I'm not for sure what the next episode is going to be. I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be the Starcast endeavor, but I'm not too 100% sure on that here. I'm going to have to check the notes, check the calendar after we get done recording this, and see what's going to be next. And as far as start scheduling some more guests to become on here, if you're listening to this and you have an idea of who you'd like to have as a guest on here, feel free to comment on one of the socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Big Lee's World. Shoot me a DM on one of them socials, or feel free to email me at bigleesworld@gmail.com. And give me your suggestions, and I'll see what I can do about getting them on there as a guest. So, like I said, thanks for taking time to listen to this and listen to my silly adventures and stuff like that we go on here. And just want to thank everybody for the love and support. Thanks to everyone that went over to bigleesworld.com and picked up a t-shirt or hoodie or any kind of merch like that, or anyone that shared the post. Or if anyone that has went and listened to the other podcast, the official CCW podcast, if you're wanting to focus heavy on your Cape Championship Wrestling news and thoughts, we appreciate you checking that podcast out as well. And if you're listening to this, make sure you share the podcast, share the episode, give us a 5-star rating, let us know what you think. You can tell us all kinds of bad things as long as you give us a 5-star rating. So with that being said, I appreciate the love, appreciate the support, bigleesworld.com, for all socials, podcasts, merch, anything and everything going on. And as always, 2 scoops of whoop, whoop, whoop.